Everywhere we go, I and I will go, and everything he say, oh yes it's hard. So I can die and follow you. Come on, let us follow you. Follow, I can die and follow you. He never commit no crime. He always do right. So I can die and follow Marcus Garvey. I can die and follow you. Come follow Marcus Garvey. Follow you. He never disobey his grandmother. No. He always obey his grandfather. So I can't die and follow him. Yes, we should follow him. Come on, follow Marcus Garvey. I can't die and follow him. We should follow
Yes, greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another impactful and informative conversation here on Unity and Solidarity TV. My name is Kamukamu, and I will be your host. Today is Sunday, March 24, 2024, of course. So today's stream can be followed on our Facebook pages, which is the UNIAACL chapter on UNIA ACL St. Martin chapter on Facebook, as well as, of course, our YouTube channel. And for those of you that have me on Facebook, you can always click the link and it takes you to the YouTube channel. And of course, family, if you appreciate and value the information and the content that we bring to you, please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more important updates. And of course, if you want to be a guest to share issues that are close to your heart, please send us a message on Facebook, and we can schedule an appointment. All right. I definitely want to take a few seconds for a moment of silence for our brothers and sisters in Africa, the Caribbean, Palestine, the global South, who continue to struggle against imperialism, racism, white supremacy, whose only task is to extract and exploit and eliminate. Right. Of course, we cannot forget what's going on in the Congo, in the Sudan, in Haiti, and Palestine, amongst others, of course. And of course, we will always find ways to use our voice for those who are unable to do so. So today I have a very, very great discussion lined up for you. I have my brother from Uganda, Mr. Kamukama Clinton, who is here with us, very active Pan-Africanist, very passionate about African development and African affairs, and let me say African development, governance, and Pan-Africanism, of course. And he is here today to share his thoughts about Russia's growing influence on the motherland. So, with that being said, I want to thank my brother for making time available to join us and, of course, to share with the family this important information. So, greetings, Brother Kamukama. How is everything?
Greetings to you and for everyone who is tuning in. Uh, we've tried in the past to have a conversation, but it has not been possible because of network and all that. But I believe this time our ancestors said this must happen. So I'm so much happy and grateful for this Sunday. So happy to be hosted. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
my brother from
You're most
St.
welcome.
Martin.
You're most welcome. You're
Oh.
most welcome. So, for those of the family that do not know you, please introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, your works on the continent, so that we can get a better idea of who Brother Kamukama is.
Thank you so much once again. My name is Kamukamu Rukundo Clinton. I'm from Uganda. I'm a journalist by profession, and the most important part is I'm a young, passionate person who has engaged so much in advocating for the better Africa. Personally, I believe if we were to go by the statistics, the almost 78% of the total population in Africa are young people. People that we are talking about people that are below 25 years, because the youth by UN is supposed to be 35. But for me, I'm looking at this age gap that I'm in, which is the largest on the continent. But the most important part is the African continent is facing several challenges that arise from leadership, from governance, and most of the young people are either forced not to act, or the environment they are living, they think they are living okay because they can afford food and all that. But generally, Africa is facing wide increasing challenges. And the moment we young people don't step up, it means we shall not only suffer from the consequences of bad leadership and governance, but also the generation that will come after us will suffer similar challenges. So I drive my passion to engage in leadership and governance on the African continent among the African people. Currently, my work is based on the African continent, Africans on the continent, but with time I will engage with the Africans in the diaspora. I'm actually started because I'm talking with a brother from North America, so I've already started and I'm unstoppable. So I believe that the destiny of Africa does not only belong to young people. Uh, so the young people must step up. That's why I drive my passion from. For now, I can say that. Then
Okay.
the viewers will get to know me when we are in the middle of the show on where we're going. Thank you.
Excellent. And I love how you started. I love how you started by emphasizing the very large youth demographic on the continent. All right, because that's a very important factor that could be once properly harnessed, right, would be able to propel Africa towards its desired goals and mission. All right, but we're gonna come back to that. What I would like to know from you as we get to start the conversation about today's topic, how would you characterize relations between Africa and Russia?
I think the interests, the relations between Russia and Africa have been growing in the past few years, especially since the days of Cold War, after Cold War era, and past that, the 20th century. We've seen the interest growing, so I would relatively say the interests are relative but rapidly growing. But the most important part is who benefits from these relations. Is it Africa? Is it Russians? So is there a balance of power, a balance of relations? Are the two powers, are the two partners interrelate from each other, interbenefit from each other? Or the relations between Africa and Russia are benefiting one partner? I think that's what I would say. Relatively, but speedily, but rapidly growing. Thank you.
Okay. So, would you say that because many persons, when this topic comes up, they are quick to remind listeners and viewers that Russia never colonized Africa, right? And that Russia supported many liberation movements on the continent. All right. So what do you say to persons? What do you say to persons who would have who subscribes to this aspect of history, and as a result, it determines their relationship with Russia?
Thank you so much. Russians may have not participated in direct colonization of Africa in the past centuries because probably Russia as a power had its own domestic policies. They could have chosen to first develop themselves, or they didn't have capacity to expand to the rest of the world. The fact that Russia did not colonize us does not stop them from colonizing us now in this generation. So they might not have participated in the past decades because probably they had their own domestic policies. Or as a country, every country has its own foreign policy. They could have decided not to participate in colonization of Africa by then. But that policy has never been this. In the past few years, the policy has changed. Because you and me, and the viewer watching this show should know that Africa, because of its natural resource endurance, the population, and so many other great resources that are on the African continent, have been a target of everyone. Both Russia, China, USA, because everyone has what Africa needs. But for us as the African people, it seems we don't know what we have. And the question gets back to us, we as the African people. Shall we keep on being a target? Shall we continue having oil curses, natural resource curses? Because you can have resources, and when you don't utilize them, they are bringing more challenges. Everyone, you're becoming a target of everyone. Yes, from the question you've asked me, Russia, it is true, it helped very many African nations achieve their independence. Even when they had achieved independence, many of them chose to go the Russian way. They go to receive Russian help from different African nations. However, what impact or what significance did the Russian help have towards in colonial Africa? Because many of the times, many of the leaders that we had in the pre-colonial African, post-independence Africa, most of them, yes, Russia gave them money, but most of this money went directly to those people individually. It did not benefit many of the African nations. So And many readers up to now, they are going to Russia not because they are going there to get the help that will help the people. They are going there because Russia, probably if they take it on from Russia, Russia will not have checks and balance. And unlike these other nations, maybe the USA, maybe the IMF, that's the same that is happening with Chinese interest in Africa. Because the Chinese don't have checks and balances. But in the long run, the help actually depreciates African resources. If you are to look at Uganda now, our national airport, Entebbe International Airport, it is owned by Russians after Uganda failed to pay a loan that is taken from Exim Bank of China. So the Chinese might seem, or the Russians might seem friendly to us, because probably the systems that the leadership system that they are using are not democratic, just like how our leaders are. And then many of our African leaders are forced to go there to get that help, but it's a trap to make Africa have a big, huge repayment burden. So in the long run, our minerals are taken, we're losing independence. Can you imagine now the Russian language is being taught in schools in Uganda?
Yep.
Even Chinese language is being taught. But
That's
how many
correct.
of African languages are being taught
That's correct.
abroad? I've had actually many friends of mine, people that I know who went to Russia, and unfortunately there was the Ukraine invasion of Russia. Most of those people were forced to go to the battle lines. Would we do, if we had a war in Uganda, would Russians do that? I can consultatively predict that if we had any insecurity here, the Russians would be picked up amidst war.
Yeah.
The next day, the war starts today, and the Russians are picked tomorrow.
Yes.
So, for Africa, not only Russia, for Africa, if you have trading patterns, do we have good arguments to have these partnerships? Because Africa, I've told you before, is a target of everyone. And we have not realized that. Our leaders have not realized that. Most of the leaders that we have now are old people. They don't know what young people are facing. And also the young people don't seem to be comfortable. They think the change they want to see is going to bring itself. But no. If young Africans on the continent don't step up and advocate for betterment of the society they live in, then the destiny of Africa is heading the wrong direction. Thank you.
What do you think has contributed towards, I would say, Russia's renewed interest in Africa?
Thank you so much. First of all, if you are to look at the international arena, many of the African countries in the past seem to have moved away from USA and the allies of USA. Of course, many of them have said and have been severely quoted saying that, and even the actions have been portraying a picture that USA, France, and the allies and the European Union, most of them have a policy in Africa that seemed to exploit the African resources. I'll give you an example of what is happening in the former French colonies in West Africa. If you look in Niger, if you look at Burkina Faso, and many other French West African nations, most of them, even if France gave them independence, the French have never gone away both practically and theoretically. So many of them are saying USA, France, their policies in Africa are exploiting the African resources. And as a substitute, many of them think that Russia is going to fill that gap which seems to have been left by USA and French and the European Union. But they are wrong. France also has their own interest in Africa. The French have been I would give you this example of the Central African Republic. But what is happening in the Central African Republic? The country is just a failed state. And the France and the Russian mercenary groups and private security companies have been there. But what do? They give security to the head of state. The head of state gets comfortable at State House. And then Russian mining companies are mining, repatriating African resources to Moscow. And this is what is going to happen in countries like Niger.
Okay, my brother, I think it's either your camera froze or your internet connection is not cooperating. So I do hope that you'll be able to come back with us very, very soon. But I think the last point that the brother made is very insightful, especially when it comes to Russia's involvement in the former French controlled West African states. Okay, I see that we lost our brother, right? But I think he was making a good point, because that is one of the observations that the information that I was privy to was leading me towards, in the sense that usually, and I don't want to go into the brother's presentation, but usually what we see is that it's just a matter of exchanging one imperialist for the other, because the latter promises stability and development. And in the final analysis, there is only one objective, which is to extract valuable mineral resources for the development of the host country, or for private institutions or private enterprises. And that's something that we've seen over and over. The only difference is that each imperialist has their own approach. Some are subtle, some are blatant. The others, they take a more brutal approach. But in the end, the goal remains the same. So I see that my brother has not returned as yet. So we're going to take a quick break. Oh, there you go. He's back. He's back. He's back. Greetings, my brother.
Greetings. I think, who is it? Is it? And they're seeing us. Sorry, I had the network problem, but
That's
I'm
okay.
back.
I did my best. I did my best to continue the conversation, awaiting your return.
So what I was telling you is the development of Africa shall not be done by France, by US, or any other foreign power. Our development as the African continent, our empowerment, depends on we African people, both Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora. Actually, I was looking at alternatives on how Africa can develop itself without USA, without Russia, without Chinese. And Africa has a huge potential from Africans in diaspora, but they are never engaged. How many countries in Africa are willing to bring in or accommodate our brothers that are outside Africa and they have passion for Africa? The Africans in diaspora have a huge role to play in the development of Africa, not only in terms of resource building, but also in knowledge extension, technology, because I believe the exposure and experience they have gotten in most of these other African nations, if it is added onto the African experience and the resources and the capacity, I believe Africa can have a way to go. Russians, Chinese, the French all have bad influence on the African continent. Thank you.
And that's a very powerful statement, and it brings me to my next question, right? In your view, based on your research and observations, what are some of the methods that, and I know you mentioned a few because you gave an example with regards to what's happening in the Central African Republic, as well as the recently formed Sahel Alliance, right? But what other tactics have you noticed that is used by the Russians to expand their influence on the continent?
Thank you so much. The reason why Russians, or the most efficient way how Russians have entered or have used to enlarge their interest in Africa is they have identified potential people, Africans, a few Africans, who are then empowered. They become their propaganda machines, propaganda tools, portraying as if Russia
Okay, I think
is an alternative person in Africa.
my brother, I think you might need to go a bit closer to the internet, the source of the internet connection, or maybe you might need to turn off your camera. Maybe that might be a possible solution to save bandwidth, and hopefully won't impact the connection. Can you hear me, my brother? Because your mic is muted. Your mic is muted.
I was also saying, can I continue?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I was also saying, extending internet. Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
I think most of them have come in probably most in form of offering security to many African nations that have been disturbed by insecurity. If you were to look at Burkina Faso, most of them have come in form of private security groups. You can talk of the Wagner and then others. We also have many of them. So they have used it several ways. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, just the internet. Just the internet is dropping out a lot.
Okay. So the most important part is where African must know that we need to put our house in order, close the doors to the imperialists, because even Russians are imperialists. They are trying to say their Russian interests in Africa. What are we should first ask ourselves as African people, what are the Russian interests in Africa? Are they pro-Africa? Are they pro-Africa? Are they Russia? Who benefits from the Russian influence? That is the most important part that every African should know. Because an example is Central African Republic. I will continue giving an example of Central African Republic because Central African Republic is one of the countries that Russians have been active. I'll give you an example that the Central African Republic has not been peaceful for the last 15 years. But in terms of natural resources, they have oil, but this is one of the most poorest country from the natural resources. Now that the American and Russians are actually it is. I think your internet is not. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes. So the most important part is Africa must organize itself in order. From the Central African Republic to Congo to recently in West Africa. So we have to put our house in order as Africans if Africa is to go and achieve the African agenda and African development and African empowerment. So that's it.
Okay. And that's a very good point because like when we look at the number of military contracts that we see that was signed off between Russia and Africa, the latest figure that I have is about 43, and the value of these contracts are in the billions. Quite interestingly enough, in terms of foreign direct investment, Russia's contribution is way behind other imperialist powers. I don't have I'm trying to look for the figures, but I don't have it. But in any case, right, their numbers is woefully low. So it almost kind of suggests to me that Russia is trying to position itself as a major supplier or the major supplier of weapons, which unfortunately for us as Africans are used to foment civil war on the continent. And by that, I am thinking specifically about Sudan, different countries in North Africa, and the list goes on and on. I was reading something a while ago. Oh, yeah. Let me read to you a snippet of an article published by the Africa Defense Forum, which informs us that, quote, Russia overtook China as the top weapon supplier to sub-Saharan Africa between 2018 and 2022. According to a new report by the Stockholm International Peace and Research, Russia grabbed 26% of the region's share, up from 21% over the previous 5 years. China's market share in the region fell from 29% to 18% between 2013 to 2022. The leading importers of Russian weapons on the continent are Algeria, Angola, Egypt, and the Sudan. Oh, and I found it here again. Russia has concluded military cooperation agreements with 43. Yes, I stand corrected. With 43 African countries, right? So that kind of gives me a sense of what their interest is, and I would also want to, and maybe you can give some more context on this, my brother. What I have noticed is that since the war with Ukraine, the quote unquote international community, right, implemented their, of course, economic sanctions and sought to isolate Russia. Consequently, Russia has, turned to the global south, of course, seeking ways to sustain not only itself, but also the war with Ukraine. And that in itself has caused, they have found a willing ally in Africa. Now, based on all that you said, my brother, right, I am curious to know, what does this say? What does Russia's growing influence on the continent say about African leadership and African sovereignty?
Thank you so much for that inquiry. I think from your statistics that you've read yourself, you can clearly point out a clear picture of who Russian interests are on Africa. Majorly, Russia contributes in form of, but what is the problem of Africa now? Is it insecurity? If it's insecurity, who's bringing the insecurity? So Russia is coming to Africa because they want to sell their weapons. But the problem of Africa is not weapons. Even the insecurity that we have in the African continent now, most of them there's an extension, there's an external hand from the Western world and many other European, from other white supremacists. If you were to look at, for example, the demographic of years, and then you see who are the major players and actors. So Russia definitely benefits when there's insecurity in Africa, when there's war in Africa, because they're going to sell their machines, and at the end of the day, after selling machines, they would come and then portray themselves as saviors. So it all rotates on us as the African people. Shall we continue being used as a fighting ground? Shall we continue being used as a home that is controlled by the external families and the family IDs they are seated? It all rotates on us as the African people. I don't care how much the Chinese contribute here, because in most cases, what they contribute is in pro-China interest, not African interest. So
that's right.
I'm not saying that Africa should not have international trading partners, but under which circumstances shall we have those trading partners? If we organize ourselves, for example, Uganda, we have so many African nations that are so much capable of helping us. In case we have a challenge, we have countries in North Africa that has so much economic power, more than most of these small nations in Europe. So at the end of the day, African people must organize themselves if they are to overcome the internal aggression. Because when you look at Burkina Faso, there was an event, I think about a month ago, and then they are praising Russians, and then the Russians are there, and then you look at also Mali, and you see the African programs continue to arise the moment they don't have African solutions, because there's no one. There's no one, I repeat this, there's no one outside Africa that wishes Africa better, but rather they wish it to continue being disorganized, and maybe they can come in and take on our resources that we have. The African question is going to be solved by the African people. Thank you.
I agree.
Hello?
I agree. Hello, my brother. You hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was about to say that I agree with your analysis. You see, and what confuses me again is the fact that we see this happening over and over and over. And besides that, right? Um, I always wonder with all of these countries, these imperialist powers that are trying to engage the continent, right? What happens to our plan? There's much talk about the 2063 agenda, right? That is in the the free trade agreement in Africa. With all of these summits and trade agreements and so forth and so on, what then becomes, right, of these ambitious plans? Because it almost seems as though it's just an exercise in futility, which I do not want to believe. I do not want to believe, because I believe a lot of hard work went into it. But at the same time, at the current rate that we hear Western countries, Western companies extracting wealth for the development of their countries, I can only wonder, my brother, where will we be in the next 5 to 10 years if we continue on this particular path? Do you see do you see where I'm getting at? Oh, I think he got bumped off again. Um, I want to welcome, in the meantime, I want to welcome Dr. Ramonda Hanza of Mindful Elevation. She says, good morning. The topic looks interesting. Can't wait for the info that will be shared this morning. Give thanks. I see here Kilaika Kwa Baruti, and says, my first time watching. I will definitely continue to watch. I've been looking for this kind of content online. Sadly, it is hard to find. Thank you. You're very much welcome. And of course, if you want to, who knows, join the panel discussion, that's not a problem. Let us know, and I will. You know what? Let me do it right now. Let me post the link in the chat so that if some, I hope my brother is okay with that. I hope my brother, are you
Yes.
there?
Yeah, I'm there. So
Yeah,
it's
so I was
fine.
just reading. I was just reading some of the comments, and I would like to open up the panel just in case brothers and sisters who are watching would like to join and make a contribution. I hope that's okay with you, my brother.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay, so I'm posting it in the chat. So if anyone wants to jump in, they can do so. But so my brother, before the internet connection dropped, I was expressing my concerns with all of these imperialist powers who have realized once again um, Africa's strategic importance, right? And we see all of these summits going on. We see foreign ministers and state secretaries crisscrossing the continent, trying to establish multiple trade deals, all promising great access, financing, investment, development for Africa. And then ultimately, in the end, we do not see the benefits. And I don't want to believe that with all of the hard work that went into putting together the Agenda 63 and all of the work that went into creating the free trade area in Africa, that it will all be for nothing if this path should continue. What do you think about that, my brother?
Thank you so much. Before I reply to that, I think before we went in for a first break by the internet, you said the African challenges have been there for the past, even when Africa got independence. Thank you so much for that wonderful question. And my answer is one. Theoretically, and on paper, Africa was given independence. But was it? No, I don't think it was tactically. Look at all the systems that we have. I would give an example here in Uganda. The leadership question, the leadership system, we stand in the name of democracy. Chinese and other major powers. Even the food system, education system, everything, there's nothing that we use that is Africa or African made. So it means that we shall ever depend on who made the system for us. Now, if you look at most of the sub-Saharan African countries, we are suffering because we are in a system that does not allow us to develop. Look at our education system. Statistics show for someone in Uganda to study from kindergarten up to university, one must have spent over $50,000.
Wow.
This is in Africa, where even someone does not have annual earning of more than $400. So it means by the time, if maybe let's say if someone has more than 10 kids, it means they have spent more than $500,000.
That's right.
Imagine. And then after they have finished school, because all they are studying is theoretical, there are no jobs. In the end, our brothers and sisters are forced to go to Middle East to do modern slavery.
Yes.
Leadership question. We are told when the imperialists came to Africa direct that we need to change our leadership system and adapt their own leadership system. But they forget that leadership sometimes depends on where you are. So for us, we are easily colonized, and then we jumped on and adapted systems, that leadership systems that do not fit in our culture. That's why countries like India are not dependent on foreign power, because even though they were colonized politically, their systems were not taken away. Their cultural systems, their tradition. But for us, our ancestors were easily manipulated. And this has kept on even after we've gotten independence, because independence means you are totally independent. But we are granted independence, but we are not granted new systems. We have leadership systems that, for example, in Uganda, that makes you believe that after 5 years you should elect new leaders. This is a developing country that does not have resources, but after every 5 years, we are spending billions and billions of money to elect a leader who in turn has to be answerable to who gives him money to organize elections. And this is all over the African continent. All the African trade, you talked of African trade free area, you talked on Agenda 63, all those ones are not going to be possible if you have systems that are not African. How many of that time, I think you must have come across that, you've come across something that Israel was made a member of the African Union somewhere.
Yes.
Because our leaders get help, get pickpockets from Israel. Because you have a system that is not pro-people. So at the end of the day, all those dreams that we have, everything that we have now, everything that we dream to see, the Agenda 63, everything is not, or is not going to be possible if we don't have African systems. Look at the organizations that are pushing that. The African Union. But none of the African, and you look at the African Union, a continental body that was not even able to stop the Libyan invasion by NATO. Right now, Libya has become a fighting ground. No one knows who even the exact leader of Libya is. It has become a passage of the African immigrants to Europe. Because we were right, African leaders were right too, that Gaddafi is a dictator. But what has happened before Gaddafi? Libya now is not safe for anyone. Everyone is armed, mafia groups, drugs everywhere. So, in the new Africa, me as a passionate young people, you've asked me in the beginning, but I thought it would make a meaning if I answered you in the middle of the show. 78, the population, young people in the African continent. So, with the 78% also allow this mess to continue happening that has been happening on the African continent over the years? That is a question that I pose. The African generation that are watching this show, not being able to come in, I will share the link and to reach everywhere within my circles. What is the Russian interest, the Chinese interest, the United States of America interest will not be stopped if we young people don't come on board and advertise for a free, united Africa that is pro-Africa and is by the African young population. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that contribution. I have here a question, and it's as follows. What country is a good brother from? And is he in any political formation we can support and stand in solidarity with? So that's a question to you, my brother.
Currently, I'm based in Uganda. Uganda is in Eastern Africa. I'm a passionate young leader in leadership. But you know, the systems that we have now in Africa, to take up on any leadership, not only political, but also administrative, has become so much commercial. No matter how best the ideas I may have, but it needs a lot of resources sometimes. So we are marginalized that even no matter how best your ideas are, you cannot run for a political office or administrative office. Is your father part of the government? Do you have a family? But no matter what odds is against some of us, because we draw our inspiration from great leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, we're inspired by people like Julius Nyerere, who came out of nowhere and then they saved the African continent. I think specifically, my brother, you have my details. You can give them any details they wish. If they come and reach to you, then you can talk directly about that. Thank you so much. You can give them my
Okay.
details, then they will engage. Thank you.
Sure, not a problem. Thank you so much for that, you know. And I like the emphasis on the role of the youth, not only because they are in the majority, but also because I believe that they are possibly exposed to more information than others through technology, through internet, instant communications, and such. Um, I think when I scan the newspapers and different podcasts, I do see many young people are gravitating towards Pan Africanism on the continent, and I become so excited. You know, I really become excited because this is always the telltale signs of when a nation is being renewed, that the young people are actively engaged, you know. And I think it's also crucial because you mentioned a number of staunch Pan-Africanists who themselves were very young when they became actively involved. So who knows? We might be seeing the next Kwame Nkrumah very soon, if not already. We might be seeing the next Amilcar Cabral very soon, if not already. We might be seeing Winnie Mandela, Madikizela Mandela, you know, very soon, if not already. And we simply have to continue to have conversations, to build bridges, and find ways to support. If I'm not mistaken, my brother, you are part of a, what's the name of your organization in Uganda? And please, if you have any updates, because I know you were doing some great work on the ground. And I think that's important for the brothers and sisters to know, especially those of us who wants to support.
Thank you so much. Right now, I'm an active member. Actually, serve as the secretary of two organizations, that is Global Leadership Empowerment and then Young Pan-African Association. Apparently, at Global Leadership Empowerment, we engage in training young people in leadership, governance, and also we engage in empowering them in economics, because at the end of the day, everything depends
Revolve. Yeah,
on economics. So we are engaging mothers and also in food and malnutrition, because we have sat and looked at how we are losing so many young kids because of malnutrition and related constraints in Africa. But why would it happen yet we have free land in most of our areas? At least every African area in Uganda can afford to have where to plant backyard gardens. Backyard gardens will help in feeding the mothers, the kids, as also they get extra income after selling them. Because looking at the statistics, we have so many factors that favor agriculture.
that's right.
And because we've not seen that, we've not taken it as the African people. We've had so many foreigners from China, from everywhere, that have come in and then taken advantage of the agricultural sector in Uganda. And not only in Uganda, because we are not organized, we don't value what we have. Foreigners that value what we have come in. Education sector is being taken away. from us. Most of the big schools, big industries are owned by the Chinese. Road the same, big contracts are given to Chinese. Education sector, no, RSA sector has been taken over by the Indians. But this wouldn't be happening if we our Africans don't have Africans on the continent don't have capacity, but we have our brothers in the diaspora who have capacity. But the government has not streamlined a good channel for them to invest back in Africa. And most of them are willing to come back, but they have nowhere.
That's right.
Actually, my dream is the channel have an organization that would streamline and make it easier for Africans in diaspora to come specifically in Uganda. I plan to draft this and look for ways how I can facilitate and then engage the government and the people in the diaspora so that they can come in and exploit and develop their motherland before their motherland is taken away by the invaders, by the white imperialistic people. Thank you. That have bad interest for the motherland. Because the motherland belongs to us, we have to protect it. We have to
That's right.
benefit from it. It has to feed us. Why should it feed? Yet we have capacity to invest in it and then get what can feed us as it's ought to be. Thank you.
That's so the name of one of your organizations is called, can you please repeat? Global
Leadership Empowerment.
And do you have a Facebook page or a website?
I will send you the links.
Okay, excellent. And then the other organization you mentioned that you're a part of, what's the name of it?
It is Young Pan-African Association.
Young Pan-African Association. Okay, I'm just putting it in the chat so that if persons are interested, they can and once you send me the links, of course, I will post it afterwards, so that just in case persons want to reach out to you, they can always do so and continue to build, which is so very important. And I can tell you, that I truly believe that there's a large appetite for persons in the diaspora that is eager to return, eager to invest, but as you rightfully pointed out, will need much guidance, will need much guidance to do so. And I think that the idea that you have is going to be very effective. It's going to be very effective, and I know it will become a hub, for the diaspora and to facilitate that particular process. You see, because the idea is still to visit. I mean, at least myself, to return to Africa very, very soon, because there's so much of developments going on. I don't know. I don't think I'll be able to sleep when I arrive to the continent because I want to be doing so much, you see. But I like when you talked about you have different groups coming in and they are taking up industries, whether it's agriculture, something that our African family have mastered over the years, whether it pertains to animal husbandry or livestock construction. Africans have mastered that. So based on your experience on the ground, my brother, right? Tell us more about the progress that you are making and the impact that it is having on the lives of the groups that you are serving.
Thank you so much for that inquiry. Firstly, I've personally and through global leadership empowerment engaged so much in advocacy of United Africa. But a united Africa shall not stand if our communities are not united. We need to start from the ground, talk to people, live peacefully, motivate them economically. So the process of uniting Africa should start from the back root, not at the African Union Summit, but it should be perceived and taken over by the communities. I'm happy our advocacy is taking shape. We are getting more space on the international media. Not only here, you've given us a chance this time, but we've also been hosted in Pan-African channels from Jamaica. So as we engage on ground in Uganda, we're also engaging the Africans in the diaspora, informing the opportunities that they can tap in is much, though it's raw, it shows some light. I'm happy that most of the young people that I have personally engaged in are embracing and joining in the organization.
Are you there, my brother? We're not hearing you, my brother.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
I'm saying our advocacy in different social media houses, not only in Uganda but also internationally. We are engaging our mothers to embrace the backyard garden initiative. We are also telling our communities that Pan-Africanism or a united Africa will not be brought you over by the leaders, the political heads, the presidents, but should be engaged by everyone. The struggle to unite Africa is not a one-man show. We cannot have an united African continent or united African continent if embraced by every African on the continent. We believe that people even in the upcountry areas, in the rural communities of Africa, must engage and must embrace in living in harmony with each other. That is the only way we can stop these religious wars on the continent. Look at what is happening in Cameroon. People are killing each other because they don't belong to they belong to different religion that was imposed on them by the France and British. So we are taking progress and we shall always continue to advocate for united Africa. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. While I have you on the line, my brother, there's something I'm very curious to know. It doesn't necessarily relate to the topic at hand, but it pertains to the U.S. Discontinuing or removing your country from the list. AGOA, I think it was. Are you familiar with that particular development, my brother?
Yes, sir.
Okay, could you comment on that in terms of what is it? Have you all already started to feel the consequences of that particular decision to remove your country from that list?
Thank you so much for that question. The program of Africa is leadership. When you look at AGOA and who benefits from AGOA in Uganda, most of these companies almost one family, and
Okay.
that family is the one in leadership. I don't think Africa or I don't think Uganda has been hit by AGOA, by the ban that was imposed on us by the USA. I think it is a class of people that have been hit by AGOA economically.
Okay.
But
Okay.
my stand would look at why Uganda was moved from AGOA. There are rumors that because Uganda drafted the anti-homosexual bill, so the United States had reply and show it was not happy. But the most important part is, why would we be interested in so much trading with the US, yet we can
Correct.
trade within ourselves if we have a free trade area with different African nations, because we have potential within us. Can you
Correct.
imagine? Can you believe that if for example I'm in Uganda and then I want to export or import from Kenya, I almost pay the same taxes as if I'm importing from US or different nations that are far beyond Africa. So if we don't first remove these limitations within ourselves, then we shall always be beggars on the international arena. Why would we have borders within ourselves, colonial borders? So Africa, there are certain things that we need to do first before we look at the foreign policies of the far distant nations. Thank you.
All right. We have another question coming in. Um the person, the sister, I believe it's a sister, so apologies if I assume, um would like to know your thoughts about Julius Malema and the economic freedom fighters. They have been the most visible political formation these past 5 years in fighting for Africa's liberation. What are your thoughts about Comrade Malema?
Thank you so much. Of course, no one doubts what Marema has done in South Africa. I believe that if we embrace the same spirit all over different 54 African nations, I think there would be some heat that would be felt by our own imperialists, by our imperialist powers in Africa. However, personally, just like any other person, I didn't like what Marema commented or his support of the homosexuality in Africa. I think he has been quoted several times saying homosexuality should be embraced in Africa. Yes, homosexuals deserve a human right, but what impact do they have now on the African people? It's a population control measure. So, just like any other person, I don't downpraise Julius Malema's efforts and initiatives of Pan African on the African continent. But I believe you also, there are some ways, many different ways, I don't agree with him on the issues, specific issues, especially on homosexuality, because homosexuality is a population control measure. And the problem of Africa is not homosexuality at the moment. Actually, it's we Africa and different African nations that has highlighted
Are you there, my brother? I think his connection may have dropped again. Brother Kamukama, we are not hearing you. So I believe your connection may have dropped, unfortunately. Ah, yes. Okay, sister. And again, I hope I pronounced your name correct. Kilai, Kilaika, Kilaika. Kilaika kwa baruti. Okay. I think I got it. Might need to repeat it a few times. But of course, thanks for joining us, you know. Thanks for joining us and being part of the conversation. This is something that I'm so interested in because there is so much to unpack, you know. Okay, I believe my brother is back. My brother, are you back?
Having I don't know whether it's your side, but because my side seems to be okay.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's my side because I haven't
Mm.
gotten any notifications or anything, but you're back. So not a problem. You're back, and that's the most important thing. So you was providing an assessment of some of Malema's policies and positions just before our connection seemed to have dropped, right? So I'd like to know if there's anything else that you would like to share about Brother Malema's, let's call it, um, brand of Pan Africanism.
His firebrand advocate.
I think the connection is giving a. Okay, I'm closing. I'm closing some windows. Are you there, my brother?
Yes, conclusively, I have another radio show in the next 10 minutes.
Okay, no problem. We can wrap up. It's not a problem whatsoever. You know, it's not a problem whatsoever. So with that said, I mean, look, I think we definitely need a follow-up. I have been following like say for example the speeches that were delivered by many African heads of state for the United Nations General Assembly, some very interesting comments. And there are a host of issues happening on the ground that I would love to get your take on in the future, of course. So let us not allow too much time to pass before we have another discussion, right? So that we can continue bringing information and learning from each other as we go on. My brother, I would like to know if you have any closing remarks or before we close out so that you can be in time for your next
Of course,
engagement.
uh, can we talk 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks from now, that should be possible. That should be possible. I'll
Uh,
simply consult my agenda, of course, and I will confirm with you very, very soon.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. So you have any closing remarks, my brother?
Conclusively, the future of the status of Africa, both presently and in the coming Africans. There's no foreigner, there's no major external power that will solve the problems of the African people. Our brothers and sisters watching this show must know that most of these people, external people we are seeing in Africa to pursue their own interest. The rest of Africa, the rest of the world needs Africa. For example, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we have gold, we have uranium. Everyone who is using a mobile phone to watch this show or a computer must know that his gadget has a component, a uranium component that is mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But what is happening in Congo? Tribal wars, insecurity, absolute poverty. This all happens as major foreign companies are mining and using Congo's resources. And the leaders know, the president knows, but the enemy at hand has used maybe neighbors has used disagreed youth in Congo, giving them little money as he comes on and takes the minerals. Not only in Congo, look at the Central African Republic, look at countries like Angola, look at countries like Niger. Resource endured, but resource cast, because they have not realized their potential. They think that someone else will help them achieve their own potential, which is wrong. Since 1960s, where most of the African nations were given independence on paper, we are going under other occupation methods. So this is through education, this is through transport. Everything that we use now is from the Western world. I don't care whether it's Chinese, I don't care whether it's Russian. The moment we don't organize and put our house in order, I think even the population of Africa in the next coming years will be full of external people, the imperialists, because the rest of the world needs us. It's as if us, we don't need ourselves. Because when you're looking at how we have religious wars in Cameroon, religious wars in Nigeria, it's totally ourselves. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be hosted. I remain Comrade Kamukamu Rukundo Clinton. See you next time.
Thank you so much, my brother, for your insights. Thank you so much for sharing this valuable information and letting us know, especially all activities that you are engaged in towards the realization of a strong and impactful community on the ground. You know, we definitely salute you. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades, that does it for today. And we do hope that you appreciated the conversation. Once again, apologies for not putting on the webcams, but we believe that it was taking up a lot of bandwidth and affecting the quality. But nonetheless, we do hope that you loved the information. And remember to like and subscribe to Unity and Solidarity TV on our YouTube channel. And of course, if you have time, please share the link and share the videos. And of course, we have a number of videos on our channel, so feel free to take a look at them. So with that being said, we leave you in the words of the most honorable, right and excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. One God, one aim, one destiny. And I want to close out with the inspiring words of Mr. Nacio Fontaine, who is going to be telling us his song about Africa we love.
Yeah, I think all the place Africa will love, Africa will love, we love, 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 so we love, yes, we love, yeah, yeah. Africa will love, Africa will love, we love, 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 Africa we love. root of creation, mother of a civilization, here of it. Oh, Western exploitation. Your rivers run deep, your gold is so rich, yet there's separation in your midst. So I gotta sing like God bless Africa. Tell them I'm about God bless Africa. I wanna let them know, say God bless Africa.
God bless Africa.
God bless Africa. Garden of Eden, oh, Africa the first. And our people so terrible from the beginning. I'm gonna tell you, land of our night fathers, where y'all love to be. And our people so black, so great, so mighty. So I gotta sing like God bless Africa.